Yahweh knew I needed this one this week.
Okay.
He really did. Because I feel like Korah a lot. Okay? There's a lot in this portion to really dive into. I'm going to kind of tell you what's going to happen today. Today is obviously the Sabbath for the youth weekend. Well, on the youth weekend, y'all seen in times past, we've done, Scripture Jeopardy or whatever the case may be. This week we figured, this particular one, we figured we would actually have skits. And well, I know. So we're going to have skits, and the kids don't know anything about it because guess what? It's not just the kids that are doing the skits. We're going to break up into 4 groups and actually do a skit. We're going to give you we're going to give you a set number of verses to kind of go over and create a skit. But it all has to do with the thematic thing of bridling the tongue. Okay, because I don't know about the rest of you guys, but this one really speaks to how, well, let me ask the question. How was the universe created? By words, right? Well, by Hebrew, by Yahweh, by Yeshua. I mean, those were actually, Yeshua was the thing that came out, right? But we also know that he was in word form at that point, right? Now, here's the thing. We can create with words. What else happens with words? We destroy with words, right? Okay, so that's why this one really kind of got to me, because every one of us has this ability. Right now, I don't know of anybody in this group that doesn't have a mouth and a tongue and actually has a voice box and actually can use it. Everyone in our group can do that. Now, you may know some deaf people, okay? Or some mute people, right? But let me ask you, kids, young adults, who in here has a cell phone? Raise your hand. Now, adults, everybody, who in here has a cell phone? How many of you understand that every time you text on this thing, you create words? Now, our intention, 90% of the time, is going to be uplifting. What happens when you're having a really bad day? And you feel like you just need to kind of get something out.
You need to share it?
You need to share, right? So you decide to share in the form of a text. Or on Facebook in a rant. Or on Flickr, or whatever, the tweeter, or I don't know all those kind of things, okay? I'm not taking, but it's funny, and I'll get to the actual portion here in a second, but I want this to kind of sit home right quick, because how often, I mean, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm not a big sports guy. I like sports, but I'm not a big sports guy. I could care less who's making $10 million here, $5 million there. Doesn't affect me. But I listen to ESPN radio because I'm sick of everything else that's on the radio when I'm in the car. Okay? And, nowadays, everything's about, what was tweeted during the game? You know what was tweeted during the game? You know what? This person's tweeting really hot right now. They're being followed by 10 billion people over here. You know what? That's the newest thing. And those are the new stats. Like, anybody in here played baseball before? Come on, baseball players? Yeah. Baseball is all about what? Numbers. Numbers, stats. It's all a stats game. Now there are stats for Facebook and Twitter. In the game of baseball. In the game of professional sports. And most of the time, it's about how many rants they go on. Or how many times they got their panties in a wad and decided they needed to voice it. Or how they put something on their uplifting as a thank you and got slammed. How many of you in here have ever sent an email that you thought was really kind, that wasn't received very kindly? I have. I mean, all of us have. We've all been in those situations. So what I'm saying is that Even though we think that, well, if I'm not opening my mouth, if I'm bridling my tongue, it doesn't matter what I put in the internet. Doesn't matter what I write in a text. Doesn't matter what I put in an email. Does anybody get that feeling? Because we create and we destroy with words. Okay? We know that our Creator made us in what image? His image. And if our Creator, the most powerful being in the universe, creates and destroys with His words, and we're in His likeness, what does that mean that our words can do? Same thing. Absolutely. How many times have you offended someone just with one word? One word. How many times have you uplifted someone with just one word? It happens. Okay? So I say that to say, now let's go into this portion where we're actually talking about bridling the tongue. With the skits, my wife is a numbers fanatic. Okay, she's a stats person. She likes to see things, graphs and charts, and I get lost. But she's the one that does that, okay? And she actually was going through and she was doing this challenge of reading the Bible in 90 days. Well, then that turned into reading the Old Testament in 90 days. And then it turned into a little bit more, but she got the Old Testament done in 90 days, so praise y'all for that. Now she's on the New Testament, and we'll see how long that goes. But she's not in that habit of just reading anymore. It's actually internalizing and seeing what it actually says. You know, because we've all taken challenges like that. Well, I'm going to do 100,000 sit-ups in 10 months. No, we haven't done that. We're not okay. Yeah, right. So I'm just saying that we've all made some commitments that just seem kind of far-fetched, but when you actually start breaking it down, does 100,000 sit-ups in 10 months matter, or does it matter that you get healthy? It matters that you get healthy. Does God matter? Does He care how many times we read through His Word versus how much we understand of His Word? Right. So, in that process, like I said, my wife's a very stats-oriented person. She's a very graphs and charts and numbers. And I mean, you should see the diagrams she's drawn out. I mean, it's amazing. It really is amazing. But she was going through Proverbs, okay? Anybody else in here done a study on Proverbs? Couple of us, okay? If you haven't lately read through Proverbs, go read through Proverbs. And especially having to do with bridling the tongue. Actually, take a look at what's going on. From chapter 10 of Proverbs to chapter 30 of Proverbs, there's 185 times that it's mentioned about bridling the tongue, about how important words are, about how speech affects other people, how it affects your surroundings, how a silent man, a foolish man, all those kind of things, it all has to do with speech. Okay? Now here's the thing. We understand, because we've heard it from up here, we've sat and heard this from Alan many times, that if God repeats Himself once, it's something worth taking a look at. If He repeats Himself twice, you have to know what He's talking about. If He repeats Himself 185 times, well, what else does that show us? That we don't get it. That we don't have that concept yet. That we can't grasp it. All right, so let's go down and dig into this Torah portion. All right. Now, chapter 16. I don't know what the rest of y'all saw, but I got to be honest. When I first read this, I was like, "Wow, there's some wrath." Really, I mean, it's like, whew, He just did a new thing. You understand when it actually mentions that the earth opened up and swallowed them? That's the first mention of that happening. Right here. First time occurrence. Okay? That's a big thing. Every time it's a first time occurrence, isn't it? It's a huge thing. Right? And even Moses is laying out, if they die by common means, then I am not sent by God. That's a statement. Oh my gosh. How many of us can say that? Well, if that light turns red, that means God didn't want me to go. Anybody use that kind of terminology before? You know, we've used that kind of thought process before where it's like, okay, God's going to show me a sign, and that sign's going to be a yellow rose. There's a yellow rose on the side of the road. All right, God wanted me to do it. I'm not making fun of that fact, but what I'm doing is that we put that into those same kind of terms where Moses is saying, if they die by any way that's not just from God, and you can't understand that, and not everybody can see that, I am not his servant. That's a big statement. Okay? So we're reading this thing. And we're going through. And first off, when we're talking about words, and we're talking about how they can create and destroy, all right? Right here, it's talking about these men from what tribe?
Levi.
Levi. Right. But here's the thing. These people from the tribe of what? Levi.
Right.
Weren't they the first 3,000? Or weren't they the first tribe that spoke up against the 3,000? Went out and slayed them? Weren't they the first ones to prove themselves? Anybody else remember that about Sinai?
Yep.
Yeah. 3,000 died, right? Yeah. How'd they die?
By the hand of Levi.
By the hand of Levi. And it wasn't nicely, it was by a sword. They drew their swords and said, here's the line, step over. It's kind of an Alamo reference anyway. Go Texas. So, we're looking here and we're seeing this people from the tribe of Levi, and then they decide that, okay, you know what? We've got a theory, we've got an opinion, we've got something that we want to do. So they create a little bit of confusion, a little bit of doubt, a little bit of murmuring. Have we ever heard of murmuring? Has anybody else seen murmuring in the scriptures to this point? I don't know. Maybe a couple times. A couple times, okay. So they start murmuring. Now they're inciting a crowd. Who do they decide to incite? Who are the people that they're going to incite to their side? My version says, and they rose up from Moses, and with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. That's 3 ways to describe a person. Okay? So are these just the Joe Schmoes that are going to follow anybody? No, these are the ones that everybody respects. These are the ones that everyone's got to listen to. Okay? Why? Because we know at this point that there are people over hundreds and over 50s and over thousands and over 10,000s. Right? We know that there are those kind of people. And so if there's 250 of these princes, these famous in the congregation, these men of renown, are they going to be, first off, easy to sway? I'm asking the question. Shouldn't be, right? I mean, logic tells us they've been with Moses this whole time. This shouldn't be a willy-nilly, off-the-cuff kind of comment that makes them go, you know what, I think he's right. Forget this Moses guy that brought us out of the land. You know, I think he's right. You know, I don't think that it was something willy-nilly. I think they actually kind of hit on something that they wanted. Because are we persuaded by feelings? Yes. No, not at all. Are we persuaded by promises of power? Could that have been it? Well, first off, these are guys of renown. These are guys who are, you know, well-known, famous in the congregation. They're princes. They ought to have power, right? Except that now it's, well, wait a minute. Why is Moses getting all this fame? Why is Moses getting all this, why is he the only one talking to God?
So they tried to put themselves above Moses.
That's right. I think even, you know, this is a true picture of what what happened with Satan. It's a true picture. Because what is going on? And I'm not calling Moses our Messiah. I'm not calling him our God. But I am saying in this setting in the story, Is he in the head leadership role?
Well, he's in the role of Yeshua.
That's right. He's Messiah to these people.
Right.
He's salvation to these people. Were they going to die in the wilderness?
No.
Yes. Without him? In fact, did God get a little mad a couple times? And he was incited to anger? I remember reading that. Y'all remember reading that? Am I alone in here? I can only hear myself, so y'all speak up a little bit. All right. So, this is the way I saw this picture going. Is that these guys said, you know what? We got it pretty good. But there's something a little better. And we want it. Isn't that what Satan did? Isn't that what, Lucifer, wasn't he cast down for doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong? Am I reading a different book? No, okay. Same book as y'all. Good. Make sure. Like I said, I got these 3 people telling me up here in front. Everybody else is asleep. So, all right. So, if we've got these 250 people that are famous and renowned, they're men in a congregation, they're going to be people that other people listen to. So, do you think that was kind of strategical on Korah's part? Yeah. Do you go to the person that everybody rejects, or do you go to the people listen to? Well, think about politicians. Think about in today's society, okay? Who do you see on billboards? Who do you see representing Nike and all these advertising things? People of renown. Well, say good job. No, people of renown, right? They're people of renown. They're people that have respect. They're people that draw other people's attention.
They're rich.
Well, they got to get there, though.
They're rich.
Okay? But even among that, though, there are people that are listened to. Because, there's a lot of people that you can't always say that about that. Because, you know what? A lot of people listen to Gandhi. Gandhi wasn't rich. Mother Teresa, well, we can all debate that, whatever. I'm just saying, though, that there's this aspect, though, of someone has something I want. I got to go get other people on my side. And this is, like I said, this is my thought process, and obviously nobody else has it, but that's okay. But I like to think of this as playing out in today's roles. How many times do we see this happen? If someone, and I'm not getting into a government debate, all that kind of topic, but think of how our government works in process. If you want to build a pass through the House, how many votes do you have to have? A majority. You have to have a majority. And then what happens? Then it's got to go to the Senate. Right? And then it's got to go to the Senate, and how many do you have to have? A majority. And then it's got to go to somebody that sits on the House, up on the high hill. And then he gets to decide. But how do you think he's making that decision? By who's going, hey, this is a good idea, do this, do this, do this. Okay? So that's how it actually works in our government system. Well, this is how it was working in this system. It was, you know what? How are we going to get our way? How are we going to get our way? Well, we just can't go to Moses and Aaron and say, guys, we think you're wrong. And there's like 3 people standing there. Because they've already seen Moses do what? Well, he's had the glory of God shown on his face. He's talked to God in their place. He's basically made Pharaoh look like a, idiot. I mean, these are the things that he's done so far. So they kind of go and they know, we can't go with 3 people and decide to do this kind of thing. They were wanting a regime change. They were wanting to be in power. So what they decided to do is, let's get everybody on our side. How are you going to do that? Let's go to the people that influence everybody else. And that's what they did. So they go to these people and they tell them these things. And they're going, they're spreading these things. And they're spreading these things. And they're well, where does Moses get off? You can hear the conversation. We've all been standing around at the water cooler and heard these same conversations, right? It's like, where do you think he gets the gall? Yeah, he did bring us out of Egypt, but that was last year. You know what I mean? Is that not kind of the scenario? I mean, now it's going, we can do so, he's so old. I hear that a lot. He is so old. You know? I'm just picturing these things. And like I said, if you don't picture this stuff and actually make it come to life, what are we doing here? Okay? So let's actually make this come to life. So, they're making these stories up and they're deciding, you know, that haughty attitude. We're better. We're better. And so they go in, they have this attitude, and they're going to go talk to these people, and they're going to get the congregation really roused up against Moses. Well, first off, does it take much to get this congregation roused up against Moses? No. No. We're in the desert for 3 days. We're going to die. We're going to die. The sea just parted, but we're going to die. There's no water. Water. There's no water. What are we going to do? And then there's, you know what he did to us? He put us out in this wilderness. This is all on him. And so they're bringing up all these things. And they're going to make this case to say, we need to have a regime change. We need to make some power decisions. Because what happens when you're in power?
You control the people.
You control the people, right? What is the difference between these people and Moses? Think about this.
Moses didn't want it. He was humble.
Right.
He was led by God.
He never once thought it was his power to begin with.
Right.
And in fact, he denied that he could even muster up anything that could resemble it. But these guys are going, we know what to do. We haven't been talking to God. We haven't been actually listening to his Torah. We haven't been listening to his instruction. But we know what to do. I got some family members like that.
It would be interesting to see what would happen. Moses told, come on, boys.
Yeah, right. Okay, you get 1 day. Go for it. I'm gonna go sit down. I'm gonna go sit under the tree. You just call me when you need something.
No, don't even call me when you need it. You're on your own. You
Right.
want it, you got it.
That's it. All right. Now, what's the first reaction Moses has? Falls on his face. Do you think it was astonishment, just like?
No.
Or do you think yeah. Or do you think he dove to the ground, shaking and trembling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I think it was a shaking and trembling kind of thing. Why? He knew that they were going to resound in Yahweh's ear. Because guess what? He's already said. How many chapters ago? I don't even know. But he's already said these people can do whatever they want. Whatever they put their mind to, they can do. He's already laid that out. It's something that if they want it bad enough, they can do it. He's also said, I will make a nation out of you. Forget these people and get out of the way. So Moses has gone through that and he knows that now. And now he's going, boom, and he dives on his face. Do you think it was to save his skin?
No.
Did he care about his skin? No. It was because he actually had a heart for the people. And also, why? Think about this though. Why else did he know that it was important that this be done this way? Think about it.
For God's glory.
It's for God's glory. And because if it word got out that these people died in the wilderness,
They become a laughing stock.
God's name should be
God's name would not have been uplifted. It was all about God's glory. That's what it comes down to. It's about God's glory. That's why Moses is on his face. That's why he's just going, you don't understand. Now, a couple chapters ago, we actually had the discussion about Miriam and Aaron having the same kind of issue. Right? So nobody's above this. So I don't want us to get this holier than thou attitude that we're all above this, we don't do this. Shame, shame, you do too. Okay? What it is you just need to understand that, yes, thank God we're under His amazing grace. But we also have to understand there's consequences to everything. and you create and destroy with your words. We know that Moses at this point is going, you don't even know what you've just done. You don't even know. And he falls on his face. He falls on his face. And he's going, okay, you know what? Let's do this thing. Because he listens to God, right? What has to happen? What's next? Hello? What happens next?
Well, they take a census, don't
They refuse
they? Yeah, they refuse to come.
to come to God. What did they just complain about? What did they just complain about?
That he was holier than them, or that,
Right.
They were saying we're holy too.
And why can't we come before
And why can't we come before God?
Moses gets to come before God?
Okay, but they didn't.
And then they go, you know what? We don't want to go. Like, there's no double-mindedness in this group. Okay? So, then something terrible happens. And Moses sent to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, we will not come up. This is verse 12. Verse 13. It is a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that what? Flows with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou make thyself altogether a prince over us? Did he just say what I think he said?
Oh, yeah.
He just condemned the land that God had given him.
Yes, he did.
Like the spies.
Right.
But then he goes back and could do it to the men.
But do you think was he talking about Egypt? Or
No, he was
upset?
calling Egypt the land of
Yeah,
milk and
he was
honey.
calling it Egypt.
I know that. I'm saying he's despising what they've been given. Because here's the other aspect of that. What has just happened? Have they just been told that they're not going in?
Yep.
Yes.
Excited.
But they know they screwed up on that, right? But they also know that their second generation is going to go in, right? They know that it's going to be given to them, just not them physically. Right? We know that's part of the promise, okay? But what did they just do again? They
Despise the land.
they're calling Egypt the promised land.
Yeah.
Okay? They're calling Egypt the promised land. They're like, well, all right, if he's not going to give it to us, then we're going to go back. They don't learn.
Putting on equal plane.
Yeah, I was wondering,
There you go.
are they actually saying, rather than calling Egypt the promised land, are they referring to, hey, you didn't let us go into the land? No. Okay.
It is a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of the land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in this wilderness, except that thou make us altogether a prince over us. So you've done this for your glory?
Read the next verse.
Moreover, thou hast not brought us into the land that floweth with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put the eyes of these men, put out the eyes of these men? Well, we will not come up. Okay? They're saying that, you know what? We're not going to do what you tell us to do anymore. You have no authority over us. We think that what you've got is no good. And I think that really ticked off God. And Moses. Moses is secondary in this one to me, though. And the reason is because now it's like, oh. Now what does Moses do?
He gives them terms.
Okay, gives them terms. Anything else?
He didn't beg for him like he usually did.
Right. He said, you want to play this part? I'll let you. He's now saying, I've stood in the way how many times from God actually